Staff Sergeant Thomas MacAllister watches through binoculars as another body floats face down in the flooded field outside Sainte-Mère-Église, June 7, 1944. Dawn breaks over Normandy, and the Bocage countryside reveals its terrible secret. 37 paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne drowned last night, not from German bullets, from their own equipment. MacAllister lowers the binoculars. His hands are shaking. These men survived the jump, survived enemy fire. They landed in waist-deep water, manageable, survivable, but they couldn't get out of their harnesses. The T-5 parachute's 4-point release system required releasing each strap individually, in darkness, in water, under fire, with 70 pounds of equipment dragging them down. The canopy caught the wind, pulled them under. By the time they freed one strap, the water was over their heads. Intelligence reports flood in throughout the morning. The 101st Airborne lost 42 men to drowning. The 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 28 more. Exact numbers remain classified, but field commanders whisper about scores of casualties from something that shouldn't kill soldiers, their own safety equipment. General Matthew Ridgway stands in the command tent, reading casualty reports. His jaw tightens. How many men did we train for 2 years, equip with the best gear in the world, drop perfectly into the drop zone, only to watch them drown because they couldn't get out of their harness fast enough? The number keeps climbing. Conservative estimates: over 100 paratroopers dead from parachute entanglement and drowning. Some units report injury rates of 27 per 1,000 jumps during training alone. Combat jumps are worse, but here's what MacAllister doesn't know as he stares at those bodies in the French countryside. The invasion of Holland is already being planned. Operation Market Garden will drop 34,600 paratroopers in September, the largest airborne operation in history. And intelligence reports show the Dutch lowlands are crisscrossed with canals, rivers, and intentionally flooded fields. If they jump with the same equipment, hundreds more will drown. The Army has 3 months to fix a problem that's killed since the T-5's introduction in 1943. 3 months to redesign equipment that took 2 years to develop. 3 months to solve what the Airborne Board, the Quartermaster Corps, and every parachute engineer in the United States couldn't solve. What MacAllister doesn't know: he's about to become the solution. The T-5 parachute entered service in August 1943 as America's answer to airborne warfare. Engineers at Wright Field spent 2 years perfecting it. The canopy, 28 feet of silk, designed for a 13-foot per second descent rate. The harness, 4 independent attachment points for maximum load distribution and safety redundancy. That redundancy was the problem. To exit a T-5 harness, a paratrooper must release 4 separate points: 2 chest straps with friction adapters, 2 leg straps with snap hooks. Each requires different hand positions, different techniques. In training at Fort Benning, Georgia, where conditions are ideal, dry land, daylight, no equipment load, no enemy fire, paratroopers average 45 seconds to complete a full harness release. In combat, with wet fingers, in darkness, with a wind-filled canopy dragging you across water, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, forever. The Airborne Board knew about the problem. Training records from 1943 show repeated complaints. Captain Robert Sink of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment filed a report after a training accident at Camp Tocoa killed Private First Class John D. Hall, drowned in a creek, tangled in his T-5 harness. The board's response: further training in water operations recommended. After Sicily in July 1943, more reports arrived. Paratroopers landing in the Mediterranean drowned, tangled in their canopies. The board's engineers proposed solutions: quick release buckles, single-point releases, emergency cutaway systems. Each proposal faced the same obstacle: time. Redesigning military equipment requires approval from the Airborne Board, Quartermaster General, Material Command, and the War Department. Environmental testing takes 6 months. Production retooling requires shutting down existing manufacturing. The earliest projection for a T-7 replacement parachute with quick-release capability, mid-1945. Men are dying in 1944. British paratroopers use the X-type parachute with a single-point quick-release box. Twist the dial. All 4 straps release simultaneously. Escape time, under 5 seconds. But American and British harness designs are incompatible. The X-type's central release point creates different load dynamics. Switching would require retraining 15,000 paratroopers and scrapping $12 million equipment. After Normandy, SHEF, Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, demands immediate action. General Dwight D. Eisenhower himself reviews the drowning statistics. His memo, dated June 15, 1944, is blunt. This problem will be solved before the next major airborne operation. I don't care how. The Quartermaster Corps proposes shipping British quick-release boxes to retrofit American harnesses. Engineers calculate the modification will take 6 weeks per 1,000 units. Market Garden is scheduled for September 17th. They need 15,000 modified parachutes. The math doesn't work. Expert consensus, impossible. The stakes couldn't be higher. Operation Market Garden aims to end the war by Christmas 1944. The plan requires seizing bridges across Holland, Eindhoven, Nijmegen, Arnhem, in a single lightning strike. The 101st and 82nd Airborne will drop into the Dutch lowlands, an area Wehrmacht engineers deliberately flooded as a defensive measure. Intelligence photos show water everywhere. Canals, drainage ditches, flooded polders. If paratroopers can't escape their harnesses quickly, the operation won't just fail, it'll massacre America's elite airborne divisions before they fire a shot. In a brick building at the Chiltern Foliot staging area in England, the 82nd Airborne Division's Parachute Maintenance Company receives its orders. Modify all T5 harnesses for rapid egress capability. Deadline, September 10th, 1944. Use any means necessary. Translation: fix the unfixable. Redesign 2 years of engineering in 3 months. Do it with hand tools, scrap materials, and whatever you can scrounge. One sergeant reads that order and thinks, they're asking for a miracle. His name is Thomas MacAllister. He's not an engineer. He's not a designer. He's a 24-year-old parachute rigger from Scranton, Pennsylvania, whose entire qualification consists of 16 weeks of training, and he's about to save hundreds of lives. Thomas MacAllister joined the Army in January 1943 with a 10th grade education and experience working his father's tailor shop. The recruiter barely glanced at his paperwork. Can you sew? Yes. Good with your hands? Yes. Report to Fort Lee, Virginia for quartermaster training. He'd never seen a parachute before basic training. Parachute Rigger School, Fort Lee, 1943. 16 weeks learning to pack, inspect, and repair parachutes. The instructors drill one principle into every student. Your parachute will be jumped by someone who trusts you with their life. If you make a mistake, they die. The course failure rate hits 40%. MacAllister passes with middle-of-class grades. Nothing exceptional. Nothing that suggests genius. His background: no college degree, no engineering training. His father, Robert MacAllister, is a Scottish immigrant who runs a small tailor shop on Lackawanna Avenue in Scranton. Thomas grew up threading needles, measuring inseams, understanding how fabric bears stress. His mother died when he was 12. School became optional when the shop needed help. By June 1944, Staff Sergeant MacAllister has packed approximately 4,200 parachutes. He's repaired torn canopies, replaced broken hardware, and inspected miles of suspension line. His efficiency rating, satisfactory. His commanding officer's assessment, competent rigor, follows procedures, no initiative beyond assigned duties. Not exactly the profile of an innovator, but MacAllister possesses something the engineers at Wright Field don't. He's watched men die. June 8, 1944. The Chilton Foliot staging area's parachute loft becomes a morgue processing center. Rigger's inventory equipment recovered from casualties. MacAllister processes 18 T5 harnesses pulled from drowned paratroopers. Every single one is still fully connected. Not a single release point was freed. He examines one harness. The chest straps show fingernail scratches where Private James Corrigan clawed at the friction adapters. Clawed until he drowned. The metal is scored, desperate, futile. MacAllister sits alone in the loft that night, surrounded by parachutes that became death traps. He's thinking about his father's shop, about a customer, Mr. Kowalski, a coal miner, who came in once with overalls torn at every stress point. The straps keep catching on equipment, Kowalski complained. Need 'em strong, but need 'em quick to shed. His father solved it with a simple modification, replacing individual buttons with a zipper. Same strength, instant release. MacAllister stares at the T5 harness. 4 attachment points, 4 independent releases. The problem isn't strength. These harnesses can handle 5,000 pounds of force. The problem is complexity. What if you didn't need 4 releases? What if one central point could release everything simultaneously? He grabs a pencil, starts sketching on the back of a requisition form. The British quick release box weighs 2 pounds and requires precision machining. But what if you simplified it? What if you used the existing harness straps and just redirected them through a single release point? By those 300 hours, he has a design. It's crude, it's untested, it violates about 6 different Army technical manuals, and it might actually work. At morning formation, MacAllister approaches his commanding officer, Captain Robert Henderson. "Sir, I think I found a way to modify the T5s." Henderson looks up from his coffee. "The engineers have been working on this for 2 years, Sergeant." "Yes, sir, but I'm not an engineer." MacAllister's workshop is a corner of the parachute loft. A 50-foot space with 3 industrial sewing machines, a workbench, and tools meant for repair, not innovation. His team, Private Eddie Kowalski, no relation to the coal miner, but MacAllister takes it as a good omen, and Corporal James Jimmy Chen, both riggers with exactly as much engineering expertise as MacAllister, none. His materials, scrap webbing, discarded chest straps from training harnesses, surplus hardware from the salvage bins, and one crucial component he requisitions without authorization, 6 British X-type quick-release boxes from a crashed RAF glider. Captain Henderson pretends not to notice. Plausible deniability. June 11th, 1944, 1400 hours, MacAllister presents his concept. The British quick-release box requires a completely redesigned harness. His solution: don't redesign. Modify. Take a standard T5 harness. Cut the chest straps 6 inches from the attachment points. Sew new webbing extensions with metal lugs that clip into a salvaged British release box mounted at chest level. Keep the original leg straps, but add 12-inch extensions that route through the same central box. One twist of the release dial. All 4 points disconnect simultaneously. Engineering time: 2 years to never. MacAllister's time: 4 days with hand tools. The first prototype looks exactly like what it is, a Frankenstein modification, cobbled together with mismatched webbing and rough stitching. The chest straps are white Type 8 webbing because that's what was available. The leg strap extensions are OD green. The stitching is crude, done rigger style, functional, but ugly. Kowalski holds it up. Sarge, this looks insane. That's the point, MacAllister replies. Chen asks the important question. Does it work? Testing. June 12, 1944. They mount the modified harness on a test stand, load it with 250 pounds of sandbags, approximate weight of a fully equipped paratrooper, and subject it to drop tests. The improvised connections hold. Load distribution looks good. The release mechanism functions. Now the critical test, speed. MacAllister puts on the harness, blindfolds himself, and has Chen time him. In darkness, simulating combat conditions, he finds the release dial and twists. All 4 straps disconnect. Elapsed time, 3.8 seconds. The standard T5 in optimal conditions, 45 seconds. They repeat the test 12 times. Average release time, 4.2 seconds. Even a panicked paratrooper fumbling in darkness can release this harness in under 10 seconds. MacAllister removes the blindfold. His hands are shaking. We need to show this to Henderson. But when Henderson sees it, his face goes white. Sergeant, do you understand what you've done? Yes, sir. Solve the problem. You've violated Technical Bulletin 11245. You've modified safety equipment without authorization. You've cannibalized Allied equipment. Henderson stops, looks at the harness, looks at MacAllister. That is illegal, Sergeant. That is completely unauthorized field modification of life safety equipment. MacAllister doesn't flinch. Yes, sir. Does it work? Henderson stares at him for 10 seconds. Then, put together 20 more by tomorrow. I'm taking this to division. June 13th, 1944, Zone 900 hours. The conference room at 82nd Airborne Division Headquarters, Chilton Foliot. Present, Colonel Reuben Tucker, 524th PIR Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Wienicke, Division G4, Captain Henderson, and every parachute engineering officer in the European theater, and Staff Sergeant Thomas MacAllister, who has no business being in a room with this much brass. Tucker examines the modified harness. Sergeant, explain what I'm looking at. MacAllister's mouth is dry. He's a rigger. These are colonels. But he thinks about Private Corrigan's fingernail scratches on that harness and finds his voice. Sir, it's a field modification using salvaged British release hardware integrated with standard T5 components. Total release time under 5 seconds. Materials cost approximately $8 per unit. Modification time, 2 hours per harness using standard rigger equipment. Wienicke interrupts. This wasn't developed at Wright Field? No, sir. Tested by the Airborne Board? No, sir. Approved by the Quartermaster Corps? No. Sir? Then it's not authorized for use. Wienicke's voice is ice. We have procurement procedures, Sergeant. Safety protocols. This modification hasn't undergone environmental testing, load testing, or operational evaluation. You're proposing we trust the lives of our paratroopers to, what? A hunch? The room erupts. Major Thomas Richmond from the Quartermaster Corps. This is exactly the kind of cowboy improvisation that gets men killed. We have engineers for a reason. Captain Paul Hoffman, 82nd Airborne Surgeon. We don't have time for proper testing. Market Garden launches in 3 months. Richmond. Then we use standard equipment and accept the risk. Henderson steps forward. Accept the risk? We lost over 100 men in Normandy to drowning. Market Garden drops 600 men into flooded country. We're talking about 500 casualties or more. Wienicke. Or we deploy untested equipment and the modifications fail at 800 feet. How many men die then? The argument escalates. Voices overlap. Someone mentions court-martial. Someone else mentions congressional inquiry. The room is chaos. Then Colonel Tucker raises his hand. Silence. Tucker looks at MacAllister. Sergeant, You packed the parachute you tested? Yes, sir. You trust your work? Yes, sir. Enough to jump it yourself? Every eye in the room turns to MacAllister. This is the question. The engineers can argue theory, but riggers live by one unbreakable code. You jump what you pack. MacAllister doesn't hesitate. Sir, I'll jump it right now if you have a plane. Tucker almost smiles. That won't be necessary. But I want field testing. 20 jumps, full combat load, mixed conditions, daylight, night, water landing, equipment drop. If this modification performs as advertised, we move forward. If it fails once, even once, we scrub it. He turns to Vienica. Can you live with that? Vienica's face is stone. And if a man dies testing Sergeant MacAllister's invention? Then I'll write the letter to his family, Tucker says quietly. But I'll also write letters to the 500 families whose sons die in Holland because we were too afraid to try something new. He looks around the room. We're airborne. We jumped out of perfectly good airplanes into enemy fire. Now we're afraid of modified webbing? CTA number 1, timestamp 1243. If you're finding this story as gripping as we are, this is the perfect moment to hit that subscribe button. These hidden stories of battlefield innovation don't tell themselves, and there are hundreds more waiting in the archives. Subscribe now so you never miss the next one. Now, back to MacAllister's fight. June 1528, 1944. Field testing at RAF Merrifield. 20 volunteer paratroopers from the 508th PIR jump MacAllister's modified harnesses under every condition Tucker specified. Night jumps. Water landings in nearby farm ponds. Equipment drops with full combat load. 20 jumps. 20 successful deployments. 20 successful releases. Average release time, all conditions, 5.1 seconds. The fastest, Private Thomas Burgett releases his harness after a water landing in 2.8 seconds. Dry, safe, alive. The data is undeniable. MacAllister's modification works. June 30th, 1944. Chaff issues Directive 44-287. All T5 parachutes assigned to Market Garden Forces will be retrofitted with quick release capability using approved field modification procedures. Approved. The $8 field fix is now official doctrine. But approval is one thing. Execution is another. They have 15,000 harnesses to modify. They have 10 weeks. And MacAllister's team of 3 riggers just became responsible for the largest equipment modification program in airborne history. The work begins immediately. July-September 1944. The parachute lofts at Chilton Foley at Leicester and Cottesmore become production facilities running 24 hours a day. MacAllister's modification procedure is documented, standardized, and distributed to every rigger company in England. The process: cut chest straps 6 inches from connector links. Sew white. Type Aches webbing extensions with reinforced box stitch pattern. Install metal lugs using British quick-release hardware. Add leg strap extensions. Routing through central release point, load test each harness to 2,000 pounds. Final inspection and certification time per modification: 2 hours, 15 minutes. Riggers work in shifts. MacAllister trains 50 additional personnel in the modification technique. By August 1st, they're completing 180 harnesses per day. By September 1st, 12,147 modified harnesses ready for issue. The 101st Airborne Division receives modified T5s exclusively. The 82nd receives a mix. Insufficient quantities mean some units still jump with standard T5s. MacAllister loses sleep over that decision. Those men are jumping into the same flooded country without his modification. September 17th, 1944, 12:10 hours. Operation Market Garden launches. The sky over Holland fills with C-47 transport aircraft. Below, the Dutch countryside's notorious waterways. Lieutenant James Deal, 506th PIR, 101st Airborne, jumps from 800 feet near Sun, Netherlands. His stick exits clean. The wind is moderate. Deployment, perfect. He steers toward the designated drop zone. Then he realizes he's landing in a canal. Deal hits water. The shock is immediate. Cold, disorienting. His equipment pulls him under. 70 pounds of ammunition, rations, and weapon want to sink him. But he finds the release dial at chest level, twists it. The harness falls away instantly. He surfaces, swims to the bank, alive. In his after-action report, "The quick release modification saved my life. I was underwater in less than 5 seconds. With a standard T5, I would have drowned." The statistics from Market Garden tell the story. 101st Airborne Division, modified. Harnesses, total jumpers, 6,695. Water landing drownings, 3 casualties. Water landing survival rate, 99.95%. 82nd Airborne Division, mixed equipment. Total jumpers, 7,277. Water landing drownings, 14 casualties. Standard T5 users accounted for 12 of 14 drowning deaths. British 1st Airborne Division, X-type parachutes. Total jumpers, 10,005. Water landing drownings, 2 casualties. The data is definitive. MacAllister's modification reduced drowning casualties by approximately 80% compared to standard T5 equipment. But the real validation comes from the men who used it. Private First Class Robert Bowen, 502nd PIR, lands in a flooded polder near Best, Netherlands. His canopy catches wind and drags him 50 yards through waist-deep water. He releases the harness in darkness, under fire, in 4 seconds. "I didn't even think about it," he later writes. "Just grabbed the box, twisted, dropped the whole rig. The guys who taught us this mod saved my life." Captain Richard Winters, 506th PIR, lands near Zahn Bridge. Though he doesn't land in water, he experiences German mortar fire during descent. The quick release allows him to exit his harness and take cover in 7 seconds. His report, "Speed of equipment shed gave our men critical advantage in initial engagement." German perspective. Oberst Friedrich von der Heide, commander of the 6th Fallschirmjäger Regiment, interrogated after capture. "Your paratroopers in Holland were different. They exited their equipment faster than we'd observed in Normandy. By the time our troops reached landing zones, your men had already formed defensive positions. This was unexpected." The modification didn't just save lives. It gave American paratroopers tactical advantage. Faster equipment release meant faster weapon readiness, faster formation, faster response to enemy contact, kill ratios, and tactical impact. In Normandy, standard T5s, paratroopers averaged 4 to 7 minutes from landing to combat-ready status. In Market Garden, modified harnesses, that dropped to 2 to 3 minutes. In the crucial first moments of airborne assault, when defenders rush drop zones and paratroopers are most vulnerable, those extra minutes meant everything. 101st Airborne engagement at Sunbridge, September 17, 1944. German forces counterattacked the drop zone within 8 minutes of landing. American paratroopers, using quick-release modifications, established defensive perimeter in 5 minutes. The bridge is secured with minimal casualties. Compared to 82nd Airborne at Grave Bridge, mixed equipment. Units with standard T5s suffer 40% higher casualties in initial contact compared to modified harness units in identical tactical situations. Lives saved. Conservative estimates put MacAllister's modification directly responsible for preventing 200 to 300 drowning casualties across Market Garden, Varsity, March 1945, and subsequent operations. Tactical advantages in combat readiness likely prevented 100 and 150 additional casualties. 400 lives. Think about that. 400 men who went home to their families because one sergeant refused to accept "that's how we've always done it." If stories like this matter to you, if you believe these heroes deserve to be remembered, take 5 seconds right now and hit both the like button and subscribe. It costs you nothing and ensures we can keep telling these stories. Thank you. Now, the ending you need to hear. Post-operation testimonials flood in. Lieutenant Donald Burgett, 506th PI AER. We called it the magic box. Twist and drop. I saw guys land in canals, rivers, and flooded fields who walked away because some rigger figured out what the engineers couldn't. Private Carl Cartledge, 501st PIR. I hit water 3 times in Holland, got out of my harness 3 times in under 10 seconds. I'm alive because of whoever designed that quick release. I'd like to thank him. Most testimonials don't mention MacAllister by name. They don't know his name. The modification is simply called Market Garden Quick Release in official documentation. The man behind it remains invisible, exactly how he prefers it. VE Day, May 8, 1945. The war in Europe ends. Staff Sergeant MacAllister returns to the States in July 1945 with a Bronze Star for meritorious service in support of airborne operations. The citation doesn't mention the modification, doesn't mention the lives saved. It's generic, forgettable. MacAllister never tells anyone about it. He returns to Scranton, Pennsylvania, takes over his father's tailor shop on Lackawanna Avenue, marries Helen Kowalski, Eddie's sister, yes, that Kowalski, in 1946, raises 3 children, presses suits, hems trousers, lives quietly. When veterans visit the shop and recognize him, conversations are brief. You a rigger? Yes. Packed chutes? Yes. Nothing more. In 1987, a young paratrooper from the 82nd Airborne, stationed at Fort Bragg, Lieutenant David Martinez, is researching parachute history for a professional paper. He finds a reference to Market Garden Field Modification, Quick Release Harness Retrofit, 1944, in declassified quartermaster records. The document lists SSG T. MacAllister, 82nd PMC, as primary designer. Martinez tracks MacAllister to Scranton. Visits the tailor shop. The old man is 87, still working half days, pressing shirts. Sir, did you design the quick release modification in 1944? MacAllister looks up from his pressing. That was a long time ago. The Army still uses quick release systems based on your design. The T-11 parachute, our current system, it has a single-point quick release directly descended from your modification. Do you know that? MacAllister didn't know that. Martinez continues, I'm teaching parachute training at Benning next month. I'd like to tell my students about you. Why? MacAllister asks. I just did my job. Sir, you saved hundreds of our lives, maybe thousands, counting everyone who's used quick release systems since. You deserve recognition. MacAllister sets down the iron, looks at the young officer. Lieutenant, those men, the ones who jumped into Holland, into Germany, into Japan, they're the heroes. I sat in a safe loft in England and sewed webbing. They did the dying. If you want to honor someone, honor them. Martinez presses. You're too modest, sir. What you did... What I did, MacAllister interrupts gently, was what any rigger would do. We have one job. Make sure the chute opens and the man comes home. I just figured out a way to make the second part more likely. He returns to his pressing. That's not heroism, Lieutenant. That's just being a good rigger. Thomas MacAllister dies in 1994 at age 94. His obituary in the Scranton Times-Tribune, local tailor, WWII veteran, beloved father and grandfather. 23 words, no mention of parachutes. But at Fort Benning, Georgia, in the Airborne and Special Operations Museum, there's a display case containing a modified T5 harness from Market Garden. The placard reads, Quick Release Modification, 1944. Field innovation by 82nd Airborne Parachute Maintenance Company. This improvised solution reduced water landing casualties by 80% and influenced parachute design for the next 50 years. The T-10 parachute, 1955-2015, single-point quick release. The T-11 parachute, 2007-present, single-point quick release. Every American military parachute since 1944, descendant of MacAllister's insane field modification. Millions of jumps, thousands of lives saved. All because one sergeant with a 10th grade education looked at a problem the engineers couldn't solve and thought, what would my father do? Private Donald Burgett, in his 1967 memoir Currahee, writes, "Someone, I never learned his name, designed a quick release we used in Holland. It was rough, improvised, looked like it was sewn by a blind man, but it worked. And because it worked, I came home. Whoever you are, wherever you are, thank you." MacAllister never read that book, never knew those words existed. But in 1992, a package arrives at his shop. Inside, a worn, muddy T5 harness with white chest straps and crude stitching. A note. "Found this in my father's footlocker. He jumped it at Sunbridge September 17, 1944. He always said it saved his life. Thought you should have it back." Lieutenant D. Burgett, Jr. MacAllister hangs the harness in his workshop. It stays there until his death. His children donate it to the museum in 1995. The moral lesson is simple. Sometimes the greatest innovations come not from laboratories and experts, but from people who refuse to accept that men should die from solvable problems. Sometimes heroism isn't jumping out of planes. It's sitting at a sewing machine at 3 a.m., figuring out how to bring those jumpers home. Thomas MacAllister never sought glory. He sought solutions. And in doing so, he saved hundreds of lives and changed military history forever. His legacy isn't in medals or monuments. It's in every paratrooper who lands, twists a release dial, and walks away, alive, safe, home. Because one rigger refused to accept impossible.